finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right, kids, buckle up. We have an election week, or as it's become in the United States, an election 2 months.
Yes.
Special for you.
As we're recording today, it happens to be Veterans Day. So shout out and thanks to all of our veterans and people serving, and in Canada for our homeland, Remembrance Day.
Yes. Yeah. Armistice Day. We could get into that, but that's a whole other world of what people don't understand why it is November the 11th.
And I would say, in fitting with today and this election week, our episode today is totally fitting with patriotism, standing up for what you believe, and freedom.
Yes. And speaking truth with comedy, which is one of my favorite things in the entire world.
But before we dive in, which we want to get to really quickly, shout out to our sponsor this week, which is Oregon Valley Farm. They've been a sponsor of ours for the last couple of weeks, and we've been posting online on social media their website where you can find them. They are, I love it. We've been raving about the food because we've been eating their meat for a long time. We order it, I pick it up, but it can be delivered depending what state you're in, usually the Western states. The beauty of their products is that it is hormone-free, pasture-raised, free-range, real beef, chicken, and pork sourced from farms in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, and California. And it's like none other. And it's sustainable farms, it's local, and the owners of the company are just wonderful people.
The good things. And unlike May and I, it's hormone-free.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been talking about all year about diet, exercise, and wellness for your body. And, you know, you've got one body, just like I say, if you had one vehicle given to you for your whole life, you would probably put the best fuel, do the oil changes, do all the maintenance, and take good care of it. But people somehow neglect.
I would put the best fuel in it as long as that fuel was Kettle One. But that's a different story.
You dream that it was Kettle One.
Anyways. Okay.
So we're gonna link to Oregon Valley Farm will be on the show notes, OregonValleyFarm.com.
All right. So on to our guest, the wonderful Jared Schmeck. Well, who is Jared? He's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and then we're going to go to a video about kind of what 1 minute in Jared's life really changed the arc of kind of who he is, how he became famous. And it is actually pretty freaking hilarious. Jared, welcome to BS Free MD. We are thrilled to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be on. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, my name's Jared Schmeck. I am also a fellow Oregonian. I live down here in Southern Oregon in the Central Point area, just outside of Medford. Father of 4 awesome kids, married to my wife, Amanda, going on 15 years. It'll be 15 years this year.
Awesome.
And I'm just your typical middle-class American guy trying to make a living, trying to raise kids in this crazy world and this crazy state that we're in. Former police officer. I worked for the Medford Police Department from 2012 to 2018. In that time, I became a field training officer, a drug recognition expert, had a lot of exposure to the changes that have fallen on our state in terms of a rising crime and frankly, the difficulties added to being a police officer in a state with very liberal policies. Experience up in Portland during our training for the drug recognition exams. And the whole experience was very, very eye-opening. So now I am working in our family business. We're electrical contractors down here in Southern Oregon. And again, just trying to make a living, frustrated with what's going on. Last Christmas Eve, I did have about a 3-minute phone call that changed my life. And I'll leave that to you if you want to show it now.
Yeah, assuming no technical difficulties, let's get to that right now.
Well, have a Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful Christmas.
And by the way,
you guys have to be in bed by 9 o'clock, you know, and asleep between 9 and 12, or he doesn't show up.
This isn't to you, Jared. This is to the kids.
That's right.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas.
Yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas as well. Merry
Merry
Christmas, and let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. I
Yeah.
agree. Hey, by the way, where are you in Oregon?
Okay, everybody wants to know. Did they lose you on purpose or by accident?
or did your wife run in when she saw what happened and tackle you and say we're gonna get the FBI is gonna be like at the door or something?
Well, the long story short, we call this NORAD line every year for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's all this was to start with. My sons wanted to call. The volunteer at the Air Force Base in Colorado, I believe it's a Space Force Base now, will tell the kids when Santa's supposed to be in your area. This year was a little different because she told us that Jill Biden was taking phone calls and asked if we wanted to talk to her. And so I said, sure, let's see how we'll see how it goes. I didn't think it would be real. Never thought it would be real. And I never thought they would let Joe talk. We're talking an unscripted conversation with an American citizen. I couldn't believe it because he was the one who actually spoke first. Didn't know it was live streamed or any of that. I figured it was being listened to because there was a delay, which you can hear if you listen to the whole phone call. But even on that video, you can hear there's a little bit of a delay there. And so during the course of this call, I'm trying to decide what I want to say. And Let's Go Brandon came to mind. We all know how that began on the racetrack last year, or I guess it was 2021. And it's grown into a movement, really a rallying cry that encompasses all of our frustrations with this administration, with during that time especially, we were dealing with COVID mandates, vaccine mandates, the terrible debacle in Afghanistan had just occurred, and the loss of 13 brave American servicemen and women, and we abandoned Americans there, and so the frustration is just through the roof for very, very justified reasons. And inflation, the inflation's insane right now. Fuel prices, what we're dealing with the on the doorstep of World War III, so Let's Go Brandon was like, hey, that this is I can get this out quick, and hopefully before they hang up on me, it's funny, and we'll just see what happens. And so I waited till the end of that phone call, had a nice cordial conversation, and waited for that lull where I could sneak it in real quick. And they, as soon as I said it, hung up on me. We posted it to YouTube from our perspective. I had my son filming on his iPad. Because I figured if this is going to be real, this would be kind of cool for us to have, like for a family video. We found out it was live streamed about 10 minutes after they hung up on me because my wife saw it on social media. Breitbart had posted it, and I didn't have social media at the time. She was out in the kitchen baking for the next morning, for Christmas morning breakfast. She was baking some cinnamon rolls, and my daughters were just running around the house playing. So I came out and said, hey, I just talked to Joe Biden, and I said, let's go Brandon. And so she, jumps on Instagram thinking, well, this is probably somewhere. And I didn't think about that, but she did. And sure enough, we see the video. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a big deal, because I didn't know he replied to me. I didn't even know if he heard me because they hung up.
Oh, wow.
So to hear him reply, let's go Brandon, I agree. It's like, oh, this is gonna be something.
That's what's so staggering to me, okay? Because obviously they heard it and then they cut you. But normally you would have like if they're going to live stream something, you got to do it like talk radio, where you have a 5-second or a 10-second delay, because you can't have somebody calling into like, a national show, into like, Rush's show or Sean Hannity and screaming obscenities. And you can't do that. You'll be taken off the air.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, like, they didn't have that much control over the situation, which is honestly kind of terrifying. And then at the same time,
not surprising.
He didn't understand what it meant because he's so out of tune. And
Mm-hmm.
he responds it, yeah, let's go Brandon. Like, Like the
I
correct thing,
know.
if you don't understand what that means, the correct thing is to say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I'm just like that was the best part. You saying it was so cool,
But
but
wait.
him responding
How
was
could he
so
That's
not
what
good.
made it
know?
gold.
How could he not know what it meant? Because when did it first start?
Well, it
A
started months
year?
before that. It
Was
started
it
about
months or a
4
year
months
before?
because I think it was
September, I believe.
August or
Maybe it was August.
September
Yeah.
Oh,
when it
okay.
started
Okay.
because the poor gal that was I forget who the race car guy, Brandon, whoever he was, but he won like that in Xfinity race or whatever, and then all these people are chanting F Joe Biden, and she's trying to cover, and she goes, oh look, they're saying let's go Brandon, right?
Yeah,
She's
right.
she's
Right. I
she's
remember that. I
thinking on
couldn't
her
remember when it
feet.
was.
Well,
Mhm.
that was perfect because now we had code language to basically flip the guy off with, which was amazing.
Yeah, and Jill definitely understood. She definitely understood.
Yeah, like
So,
I'm just looking at the clip of it frozen and the look on her face, hanging in disgust, looking at her feet, and he's just kind of looking confused.
Yeah, that's the face she makes when they have to change his diaper.
Stop.
Not again, Joey.
Oh my goodness.
We
So
gotta
that's fascinating because I myself and I'm sure everybody were wondering like how on earth did you get to like call in
Yeah.
to speak to the president? So I love the backstory about just calling into NORAD, and it was you didn't even know who that you would get
No, there was
speaking to
nothing
them.
to it. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I would have called if I knew he was taking calls
Right.
because my initial reaction is I don't want to talk to that guy. But so it was just a weird set of circumstances. But it was life changing. Within first for the negative, I would say within 24 hours, we were like being completely bombarded with phone calls, all of them threats and
Really?
insults. Yeah, but there were a lot of threats. There were people threatening to come to my house, to kill my kids, to burn my house down, to rape my wife. They were putting my kids' names and my wife's name on the internet, trying to like posting pictures and stuff, my address, and doing their normal thing. I mean, it's not unexpected, I suppose. Anyone who stands up is attacked in this same way every single time. But when you're actually going through it, they're pretty darn effective at what they do. And of course, the media was doing their thing. They were spinning everything that they could. And the probably my mistake was speaking to the Oregonian on Christmas morning. They called during Christmas breakfast, and it was kind of an ambush. I mean, I should have expected it looking back, but when you're in the middle of it, hindsight's 2020. So, they called and asked me some questions, and they took what I said and kind of spun it into their own story. It frankly made me sound weak and wishy-washy, which is not who I am. We're strong Christians. We are strong conservatives. It's the way I've been raised, and I'm just tired of the blatant evil that we're facing right now. It's not even about left and right, Democrat, Republican. This is a good versus evil, and I believe strongly that there's a spiritual side to this, and we were put here for a reason in this time. This is our 1776 moment. This is our time, and if we don't stand up to the tyranny that we're facing right now, this is nothing compared to what it'll become. And just look at the rest of the world. So that Christmas night, phone calls. I mean, as soon as my phone stopped ringing, it was ringing again. Same thing with my wife, my in-laws, my parents, cousins. Everyone's getting calls. Our business, the people were trying to hack our website. We had to shut our website down, hacking into our work email addresses, review bombing us on Google. Anything they could do. And my boys, who are at the time they were 11 and 8, and my girls at the time were 4 and 2. So my boys understood kind of what was going on, and my oldest boy was pretty scared and told me he wished I hadn't said it on Christmas night. And so that's kind of when it hit me. It's like I got to have a serious conversation with my family here, because one, we got to figure out what we're going to do, but two, my boys are going to remember this and how I responded to it. And there's a lesson in there. And so we as a family, we prayed for guidance. Obviously we were concerned about our company and the livelihood of our team, even though we are in a conservative area. And we have a really well-knit, solid team. Everyone on the team stood with me on this. And I explained to my boys that our freedoms are not gifts given to us by the government. They are rights that we have at birth given from God. And no one can take that from us. We can willingly hand it away, but we're not going to do that. And so from that point on, I decided I was going to stand up, talk to everyone that I could. I had a lot of requests coming in at the time for interviews and whatnot. Initially, I wasn't going to do that because I didn't do this for fame. And but when I was able to step back and really think about it and take the time to pray for guidance in it, it's like this is an opportunity for me to, one, show how crazy the cancel culture and far left is, and two, show that we can't back down to any of this stuff. These threats, I mean, bring it on. I mean, you can't scare us into submission. It's not going to work. And if I'm able to do that, just a normal dude in Southern Oregon, then anyone can. So it's been life-changing as a result. And after that moment, when we decided to stand up, I'm telling you, the love that poured out, not even just from Oregon, all across the country, even around the world. We were receiving letters from people in Australia who were under very, very, very heavy lockdowns at the time, and from all over. I mean, Ireland, of all places, people from Ireland sending me stuff. And it's the world knows, they see what's going on in our country. They watch us. They watch this clown show on Tuesday night. I mean, and they watch the clown show that's in the White House right now. And we are the leaders of the free world, and our leadership's not acting that way right now. But they recognize the American people, that the heart and soul of the American people is still there, and it's still strong. So it was very refreshing to have people take the time to actually reach out to me from all walks of life.
So you had the initial hate bombs, threats, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. How long did that last? And how intense was it compared to the other change where people were reaching out and it became positive, and then this became kind of almost like a mission, so to speak, mm-hmm. like because I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of de facto become a political activist to a certain degree now.
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, I've always been I've always paid attention to politics because. And this is one thing that really ticks me off a little bit with Christians in general, is that not enough Christians vote. And I think we've seen that here in Oregon this time around. I think we've seen that across the country. Not enough Christians vote, and not enough churches are bold enough to stand up to the political ideologies that are directly in the face of what we believe. Like it's with the abortion issues in California. And across the country, why aren't churches stepping up? And I know God's in control, and this is written, and God wins in the end. But we are called to fight. We're not called to sit here on our hands and just let evil triumph. And so yeah, I've become an activist in a way. I've always kind of been involved. I don't know if it's so much in my local area, but people who know me know where I stand. I guess I'm not quiet about it. But I would say that shift happened pretty quick. The hate hasn't stopped. We actually still get hate mail. We still get calls, both personal and at work, still get letters at work as well. But it's slowed down for sure, but it hasn't stopped. But the outpouring of love, I think, was always there. I just didn't see it because all this anger was right in my face initially. And it was to a point where it almost felt like there's no way that these people are sitting here with nothing else to do. They've got to, someone's paying for these people to do this, because this is insane. I said, let's go, Brandon, and Joe agreed. What's the problem here? And
they should be sending him the hate mail for agreeing with you, right?
I mean, it just goes to show that he's not fit for the position he's in right now. And how can you really support that guy? I mean, we don't have to agree on everything. This is America. We don't have to agree on everything. That's part of what made America great. But can you really support this guy? So it was the love was always there. I just didn't see it at first. And I think that's important to remind people is that there's more of us than there are of them. They just happen to be louder. And we stand on the side of truth and freedom, the principles that this nation was built upon. And we cannot back down to that. We have to hold to that. What we are going through right now could be pivotal to whether our country survives or not in the shape that it's in right now. I mean, I don't think America is going to necessarily be gone, but I think it will be gone in the form that our forefathers set it in. You know, it will not be a free country if we don't step up. And we're running out of time. I don't know what else to say to get people out there and vote. I mean, I think part of it is a lack of faith in our voting system. I have a lack of faith in our voting system based on 2020, based on some of the elections this midterm cycle. But that doesn't mean we don't show up. That doesn't mean we don't vote. I mean, if we want to get into Oregon politics, Christine Drazen was not my first pick. Frankly, none of the Republicans that ran were who I would have liked to see in office. I want to see someone who's bold, unwavering, unafraid to stand up to what we're facing here in Oregon. And I didn't see that in any of the candidates. But I saw good values in all of our potential candidates, and I saw good values in Christine Drazen as well. But regardless of the fact she's not my first pick, I still voted for her. If you don't go out and vote, you're voting for the other side. And yeah.
What you said about it's kind of struck me, but the analogy of it's true that it seems like the left seems to be the loudest and kick up a bigger fuss, and we seem to want to be the silent, quiet, moral, strong side. But it reminds me of raising kids. And you know how when toddlers and kids don't get their way, what do? They kick and scream and throw stuff and destroy their room or bite. You know what I mean? Kids go crazy. And as a parent, you can, be stubborn. You can fight back, so to speak, learn how to be the stronger one and to tame that so that it doesn't get out of control. And sadly, even what's happening, what we see with parenting, not across the board, but even in society now, it's just like, it's just too much work. Just let them have their way. I'm exhausted of fighting back. But the downstream effects of it are so damaging to the child, society, families. I mean, it's the same with our politics. It's like if, people say, well, it's so hard and I don't want to be that loud person standing up and I don't know if it's going to be worth it. Well, the downstream effects to us, our kids, our grandkids, the country, like you said, it's going to be devastating in ways that people need to really think about.
And I think you, like, I see this as a fundamental disconnect. So if you look at the left and how pissed, like the extreme left, and how pissed off they get with this stuff and the screaming and the yelling and the temper tantrums and the death threats and all the rest of this, what you did is you pissed on the altar of their temple. And that's, so you were essentially committing pagan blasphemy. And I think what we have to realize is not all liberals and not all Democrats by any means, but this really vocal ultra left wing side of that party, that is their religion. They have nothing bigger than that. So essentially they believe in a religion where there's no forgiveness, there's no redemption, there's no life after death, and the holy sacrament is unborn killing. Mm-hmm. So that's how they believe. So that is incredibly dark and it's incredibly depressing. Okay. And, now they've added this other sacrament of, child mutilation to it. Like when you look at it and people go, oh, you're being too extreme. And I'm like, no, I'm not being too extreme. Like that's exactly what's going on. Okay. So when you look at that, their response is entirely rational. But on the other hand, so much what's happened in modern Christianity is we like the comfortable pews. We like the skinny jeans and smoke machines and, and all of that kind of stuff. But we've forgotten that the same Jesus was whipped with a cat of nine tails. The same Jesus kicked out the money changers, which essentially was flipping off the corporate system in ancient Judaism. It was the same Jesus that called the political elites a brood of vipers. And we forget that. We want the silent night Jesus, meek and mild.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a time for meek and mild. Who was he meek and mild with? He was meek and mild with seekers. He was meek and mild with prostitutes. He was meek and mild with children. But when it came to the satanic political and economic forces of his day, he was a total badass. And there has to be some balance, and we met some amazing people through doing this podcast. And I tell you, there's some unbelievably happy warriors out there. And that's kind of what I want to be. It's like where you speak out and you speak boldly and you speak firmly, but at the same time, people they love your message because they know it's true and they know you're not a jerk about it.
No, you're 100% right. And I think there's maybe, you're right as far as the side of Jesus that people want. And also the side of Jesus that non-believers, like I had a lot of people attack me for my Christianity because I said, let's go Brandon. And even one phone call, just a little diversion, one phone call with one of these people, actually my mother was the one speaking to her. She said, I'm a Christian and I would have never said anything like that to Joe Biden and blah, blah, blah. And so my mom actually asked her, like, can we pray right now on the phone and then have a conversation and maybe we can come to some kind of an agreement or at least an understanding of each other. And her first response is, no, I'm not going to pray with someone like you. I mean, what's that tell you right there? So, and I think people confuse meekness with being meek with being weak, and meekness is not weakness. It's not the same thing. It's being you're reserved and you're obviously loving and caring and whatnot, but you have this incredible strength within you, and this boldness that comes out not only through your meekness but also in more bold ways when it's needed, flipping tables over. I mean, and there's a time and a place for both. Like you said, there's a balance that you need, and it's a balance that we're humans. We're going to fail. But we should all be striving for that balance, and we should all be working together for that balance. And when you really simplify things down to what's happening in our country, is our country's turned its back on God, and thus turned its back on our Judeo-Christian values that we were built upon. And there's this very real effort, not only within our country, but from forces outside of our country that are trying to reposition America into a socialist country, and it will no longer be a republic. I think people forget it's a republic as well. If we don't do our part, and I understand, and I've had a lot of people ask me, is like, well, what can I do? I've asked myself that same question my entire adult life. What can I do to actually make a difference outside of showing up to vote? And I don't really think our voting system is working great and blah, blah, blah. So that's not going to do any good. So I get that thought process. Doesn't mean we don't show up to vote. And what everyone can do is it starts in your home. It starts in your home. And you brought up parenting. It's the degradation of the family has led to where we are. That happened through a variety of reasons. One way was through the welfare program in our country. But it's you're rewarded for doing less. You're rewarded for not having a dad in the home. None of it makes any sense. And so you need to build your family. That is going to cause generational impact down the road. And there's no excuse for not doing that. Everyone has time for that. So if you can't be a part of the school board, you can't be a part of your politics within your local community, the city council or whatnot, or running for governor or senate or whatever it may be, I completely understand that. We've got bills to pay, we've got our lives, we've got our jobs. You always have time at home, and if you're not taking care of that, that's on you. And of course we're going to end up where we are, because it's just multiplies, because we're against a system that it fights that effort. Our kids have a limited amount of time at home with mom and dad, limited time at church. The rest of their week, they're being indoctrinated at school. They're being indoctrinated by Disney. They're being indoctrinated by Nickelodeon. Whatever it may be, it's YouTube. It's all being thrown at them a million miles an hour, and it's kind of a new problem. But it's something that we have to recognize as parents, and we have to work hard to control. It's on us as parents to really make this difference. And if we do that alone, I think we're going to be in a lot better shape when our kids are growing up. So that's definitely the key that everyone can do.
And it's interesting because, like I've always said, I guess I'm still technically a skydiver. I'm not current right now, but
no, you're not.
And yeah, well,
no, you're not.
That's coming
You're
back.
done.
I'm coming back to a third degree. But parachute.
His life insurance is timing out. He's done. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I do stuff that's way more dangerous than that, but that's another discussion. But parachutes fly because of tension. So you have the tension of the air inside the canopy. You have the tension of the lines. If you don't have tension, it doesn't fly. It's just, it's a leaf. And there's this tension, I think, that we have to understand, because there has in the past, I think, and there still is, there's elements of Christendom that look to politics and it becomes an idol. I think back to some of the moral majority stuff. If we, the first thing we do is get people baptized. The second thing we do is get them registered to vote. Well, that might be true, and there's truth to that. But I think that there's a laziness where even really politically active people have said, they don't really have to do their faith so much, because we're going to save the country morally with politics. Well, you're not, because by definition, politics is always going to be corrupt. Like, that's just the nature of the system, even though it's got checks and balances and all of this stuff. And then on the other side, people are like, well, I don't want to mess with politics because it's too messy, and I'm just going to go to church and be holy. Well, that doesn't work either, because you still have it's like saying, I'm not going to go to work because God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and will provide for me. Well, he will, but part of how he's going to provide for you is he's going to give you skills that you can exploit so that you can feed yourself. So there is that tension, and I get it, because we come from Canada, and a lot of the Canadian friends look at sort of the American religious right, and they're like, well, you guys are just idolizing politics and it's all BS and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, look at Justin Trudeau and what you guys got by just sitting on your hands.
Yep.
Because look at Australia, which was filled with a bunch of foul-mouthed alcoholics, and and then it became the most egregiously shut down place in the entire world. I mean, the only place shut down more than China or than Australia was China. I mean, put that one in your proverbial wallaby pipe and smoke it. Like, that is just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, that country turned on a dime in a second. And so, yes, you fight political battles, because political battles are spiritual battles. I mean, the plight of the unborn, the trans thing for us. We interviewed Miriam Grossman, who was on Matt Walsh's documentary. And I think that is the string to pull the hardest on from a social perspective. And the reason is, you can make a lot of different arguments for abortion. I get that. I think it's much more nuanced. But when you say that girls have penises, that one is so blatantly insane. I think it's a really great place to fight the culture war, because it's so damaging, so horrible, and so obviously crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset that both are equal in my head. I mean, it's both of them are doing a very big part at breaking down the family. And that's really, again, when you simplify it down, we're seeing an attack on family, because the family will, stands in the face of what their agenda is. That's really what it comes down to. And it's don't really know what else to say about that, but I feel like both are of equal importance. I think that I mean, abortion for me, I don't it's black and white. It's a living human. And so, I mean, there's no, it's black and white. There's no gray area there. It's the same thing with transgenderism. I mean, when I was going through high school, you heard about trans people very occasionally. Usually it was just like a cross-dressing dude. I mean, it just,
Right.
Right.
and that's all it was. There were no drag shows for 8-year-olds. There were no kids going, getting their puberty blockers or any of that crap. And it seems to have shifted almost overnight. I mean, it really, it's this big push. I've never, I mean, I don't even remember when I heard about this first drag show for kids. But now it seems like they're every other week. And it's crazy to me. Or these hospitals, George Bush, their hospital is his mom's hospital, if I remember right. It's named after her, at least. They're providing puberty blockers for kids and mutilation, like you said, mutilation of these kids. And I mean, this directly falls on the parents, of course. It directly falls on the parents, but it blows my mind. And I think what we're seeing from the spiritual side of things is it's just a direct response to the good that's been rising. In 2016, when Donald Trump became president, I can understand why he may rub people the wrong way at times with his coarse language and attitude. But that's frankly what's needed right now. We need to get in the face of this evil that we're up against. And what we saw him do for the unborn, what we saw him do for our military, for our economy, he surrounded himself with godly people, with Christian people, and he allowed them to help direct him. I'm not saying he's the strongest Christian in the world. We all have work to do there. But he surrounded himself, and God worked through him. And so of course, the direct response to that is what we did see in 2020 and what we're seeing right now. Are we just going to sit down and let it happen? I just can't even fathom the thought of just sitting down and letting it happen.
But it's interesting because I think economically, and I think for sure foreign policy wise, I think he had some absolute rock stars. Pompeo
100%.
is just an amazing man, devout Christian, just a number one in his class at West Point, et cetera, just an absolute rock star. But what killed Trump is he believed Birx and Fauci. Yeah. And that brought him down. I mean, seriously. And then, he still didn't have the sense when, doing rallies last, January, February, March, he was still touting the fact that he brought in Operation Warp Speed and brought in the vaccines. And I'm like, that is the single greatest political loser for people on the right is the vaccine mandates. Whether you agree with the vaccine and think you should get it or not, just the mandate part of it itself. And I'm like, I that one is hard for me. I'm like, how could you be so tone deaf to that? Like we interviewed we interviewed Peter McCullough a few weeks ago, and he's like, all you have to do is be a single issue candidate and just say the vaccines stop now and you'll win. And he's probably right. And not very many people did that. And it's fascinating if you look at what DeSantis did, because he took on the woke stuff straight ahead. He took on the vaccine mandates straight ahead. But he knew that abortion, especially in a purplish state, which it still is, even though he won, he avoided abortion because he knows it's a political minefield. And because it really is. I mean, it's kind of like guns and abortion, whether we like it or not, are bipartisan issues. They really are. And he cleaned up because he saw what people wanted. And he put it in a way that they understood, and then he actually affected change. And I think where the Republicans fumbled the ball in this last election is you can only run on I'm the most pissed off guy in the room for so long before people don't care. They want you to run on something. And I think DeSantis showed that if you run on something, like you could, if you're running next presidential election, you can run on the vaccines. You can run on we don't want to shut you down and the one that will change the world. And you run on cheap energy. That's how you save the country, is cheap energy. Real easy. Like this is just, putting the ball on the tee for Barry Bonds. It's simple stuff, but like,
I know.
I'm gonna go back to, well, we were talking about what's happening with our kids in the next generation and the transgender movement thing. And, you said it's on the parents, although of course how you raise your child affects their beliefs, but yet, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate. That's what I do. But to come into defense of some of these parents, I mean, it gets to the point where parents are standing up against this. But what do you do when places like California and the school district can override what a parent believes? I mean, we know in Canada, a father was put in jail for standing up, trying to protect his.
He was put in jail for using the wrong pronouns.
Yeah.
It's insane. So
parents get afraid because now bodies, school districts, they won't even tell the parents that their kids are allowed to play. I call it play dress up, change their name at school, and they are then getting therapy and seeing medical professionals and getting hormone blockers without parents knowing. And so this is frightening. But what's been encouraging is to see parents on the news who go to school board meetings, who challenge it, that is what has to happen, is exactly like you said, get involved. I mean, there's a cause and an issue. Don't just sit around and go, oh, this is terrible, we just have to teach our kids, but actually stand up for your kid and others too.
Well, I think the way you rob them of their power is you let them call you whatever you want to be called and go, yeah, you're right. Like eventually, being called an election denier or a science denier or a racist or whatever, like you have to get it through your head that it's just words, because to them it really is just words. They don't mean anything. If it doesn't mean anything to me, I mean, people know Trump is kind of a rube, but he's not a racist.
No.
But if you're completely scared to death of being called a racist when you're not a racist, then you're just kind of a numbskull, and you give them power that they don't deserve. It's like
100%.
Right. It's like they like, for the love of heaven, they called Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy.
Yeah. I remember that.
If that isn't the most freaking racist thing in the entire world, I don't know what is. And so you just sit there and you go, yeah, that's right. I'm Larry Elder. I'm the black face of white supremacy because I was born in South Central LA, one of the most racially, concentrated area of African Americans in the entire country. And he's a racist. It's like, come on. Like, eventually we got to go, these terms don't mean anything. Election denier. Okay, whatever. Yeah, that's right. I'm an election denier.
So
I don't think that you should have vaccine mandates. Exactly. Oh, you're anti-science. Yep, I am 100% anti-science. Like, it doesn't matter, because what they're saying is nonsense. And so, you almost have to get into the playground game of they call you a name.
I know you are. I am, but what are you?
Yeah,
I know you are, but what am I? That kind of backwards mentality.
Yeah,
exactly.
because it's so silly, and we back down sometimes on the right because people call us names. Well, boo frickin' who? I mean, that was Trump's greatest strength. He did not give two stinks about what anyone called him.
Well, most people do not like conflict. They don't. I mean,
you're right.
That's how it is. They don't like conflict. They'd rather slink away and hide than have to deal with conflict and stand up for what they're.
Somebody called me an election denier. Okay, well, big deal. I mean, they're not going to call me unfaithful because I'm not. They're not going to call me unchristian because I'm not. What really matters? Like, that's, you got to say what really matters. The opinion of some moron with purple hair and 17,000 piercings and a fake chest binder so that they can look like a non-binary person. Like, you really give a shit what they think about you? Honestly, you really do?
I love it.
It's a great point.
So in other words, grow another set of balls is what you're telling people.
Or enhance,
or get them sewn on.
Well, right. It's like when Matt Walsh was getting yelled down at that rally in Nashville. They're screaming and yelling and cursing and all that. And how I would have responded to that is I'd have come out and I would have, in my best Matt Walsh voice, I'd have said, you people are so upset you'd think someone cut your dick off.
Oh my.
And that's actually what happened.
Yeah. I mean, and they won't know how to respond to that response from us either. And you're right. We shouldn't care. I don't know why so many people bend over backwards for this woke BS. I mean, it makes zero sense to me. And even even Democrats are sick of it. So, I mean, it blows my mind. Blows my mind. Can't wrap my
Well,
head around it.
it's interesting because we've been doing some work with Rick Dancer, and he is just so much fun to work with. And Chris Dental is one of his sponsors, and they were very bold. They started having massive billboards all over town in Eugene. Okay, this is in Eugene. This isn't in like Roseburg. And it said, "We don't care if you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, gay, straight. We don't care. We take care of everybody."
Funny
And
how I said something like that at a place I used to work, and
yeah,
it didn't go over so well.
it didn't go over well. It was
I'm
like,
not working there anymore.
yeah, we can't get into details because then we'd have to pay them. So at any rate, it was fascinating because even Rick, I mean, Rick's a pretty forward, guy. He's like, man, you got to be careful. They're going to come. The guy's business exploded. He had to hire like 2 more dentists. He had to get a different building or expand the building he was in and have 2 or 3 more dental chairs. And he had people coming in. This is the part I love the most. And this is what we have to remember. He had patients coming in saying, I will never vote the way you do. I know that we disagree politically, but I will come to your business because I know you're a man of your word and you're courageous. And I was just like, that just gives me chills thinking about it. It's so awesome. Has the same thing happened to you at all?
Yeah, actually, our work's picked up quite a bit since the phone call, and it's because we stood up as a company. Our company made a public statement regarding it, and it's the overwhelming majority of people appreciate it. And we have people that we do work for that do not agree with us in a biblical sense or a political sense, and we have people that, I mean, our team, not everyone on our team is a conservative. Not everyone on our team is a Christian, but we all appreciate the freedom that we have and we all respect each other. And that's where we need to get back to. That's where we need to get back to.
I love it. So are you wanting to share the name of your company, or you prefer to keep it anonymous?
Wanema Electric. Wanema Electric Incorporated. We've been in the Klamath Basin, actually, in Klamath Falls. So I drive a lot. We have an office in Central Point, but I'm back and forth all the time. And we've been open for, 50 years now. I think just over 50 years.
Wow.
Awesome. Just over 50 years. And my dad's the owner right now. I'm doing project management work for them. I was an electrician for a short time before getting into the law enforcement gig. We're just we're blessed with a lot of work, blessed with a community that really supports us, and it's pretty cool. Really couldn't ask for more.
I love it.
And I love what you said about how not everyone is kind of on the same side, but that really hit me. We interviewed Tony Lyons and Sophia Karstens a couple of times, and they work for Children's Defense Fund, which is Bobby Kennedy's stuff. And honestly, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure I've never voted for anybody that Bobby Kennedy's voted for ever, but I 100% back him and 100% believe in him because he's fighting for a much bigger principle than an R or a D, and it's freedom and it's free speech, and it's not being controlled by, governmental or, corporate, juggernauts that take your freedom away. And hey, if you're on the side of that, I don't care if you're an R or a D. And that's the other thing. Like, I have discussions with some of my friends. I know we've never voted the same ever, but when you get to big principles, most people in the United, and that's the key. Like, you gotta, if we can hone in on the big principles, it's like, don't you think somebody that's Muslim should be able to be Muslim in the United States? And you're like, well, of course they should be able to. That's, one of the premises of the First Amendment, right? I mean, if it's
100%,
and yet, and so big, like, start with what we agree on, which is way more, and work out from there, and be nice, and you know what else? Be funny.
Oh yeah,
because like the Babylon Bee has probably done more for conservatism than anybody in the last 5 years, because they've poked such obvious fun, and it's like the gentlest humor in the world, but it's so poignant because it's so true.
It
And I
is.
love that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we need humor, and we're in pretty dark times right now. And without humor, which is definitely a trait given to us by God, I mean, it's very natural. Um, Without humor, I don't know how we'd make it through.
No,
So
no, and
we need it.
in your case is the whole thing. You told the joke, and the left can't take a joke. They can't make a joke or take a joke, which is amazing.
Yeah,
So
woke is not funny.
I want to know, are you going to be calling the NORAD line again this year at Christmas?
Absolutely, but I don't think Joe's going to be taking calls.
I don't think so. So where can
you set a precedent. I
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, I know. Jared Schmeck just completely obliterated that concept. So where can people find you?
Instagram at the real Jared Schmeck is my handle on there. I'm super shadow banned right now, but you can still find me. They haven't kicked me off completely. I'm on True Social at real Jared Schmeck. Getter, if you just look up my name, it'll come up. And Twitter, I just started. I mean, I've had it open for a while, but I'm just starting to post since I don't have to worry about getting banned now. So yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Outstanding. Yeah, that's great. We'll put all that in our show notes, and yeah, this will be up on Rumble. We'll send you all the links and all that kind of stuff too, because
Cool.
the more we can get it out there. And like I said, we're almost exclusively using Rumble. We have some stuff up on YouTube, but it's just not worth the hassle.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand completely.
Well, this has been so much fun, and I think perfectly timed, whether it's just a fluke or God made it happen right during this crazy week, month, and what's going on. It's been so much fun having you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. And I guess just in closing, I want to urge Oregonians not to be disheartened, and to keep fighting, because we saw a close election. I don't even know how they officially called it yet. I think Fox did, but Fox called it at 1%. So who knows?
I think it's 85% of the votes are in, and they called it this morning.
Yeah, but if they're counting the other 15% in Multnomah County, it's only going to
yeah.
I mean, the die is cast at that point.
Yeah. So I mean, it's frankly, it was probably a long shot to begin with, but we have to keep fighting, and so don't be disheartened by it. I saw a lot of energy at an event up in Salem a few months ago, more energy than I've ever seen. And I went to a bunch of events after this phone call, and the Oregonians, they showed up.
Yeah.
It was a really cool event held by Clay Clark, and so just keep your nose to the road, keep pushing forward, because we got to do this for our kids.
Amen.
So.
I love it.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Perfectly said. You are so welcome.
Let's go, Brandon.
Exactly.
Well. I think the thing that was the most moving talking to Jared was really the power of the common man. And I think that that's what a lot of us need to hear, is that you can be just a hardworking dad trying to live your life and your faith out and actually have an impact just by speaking your mind and being a little bit funny and a little bit cheeky. And none of those things are bad, wrong, or whatever. And I think that that's really, really cool, because, we didn't know this guy at all. We'd never have known him without the Let's Go Brandon. And what a great conversation and what a fun time. I mean, this is somebody that would be one of my bros if we lived in Central Point, and that, I think that's the encouragement I take away from it. It's just, you don't have to be obnoxious. Just stand your ground and speak your mind.
And what's really I find about the whole thing is how he let the president of the country know exactly how he was feeling in the most, probably, was that a respectable way? I don't know. I guess we could argue about that, but he got the message out by just saying, "Let's go, Brandon." He'll let him understand his opinion without screaming and yelling.
Yeah, I'm going to reserve some comment on that, because I think in this country you can say whatever you want to say. I mean, they can censor you if you're profane, but it's something like that was a joke, and it was clearly a joke.
I just meant he wasn't profane. wasn't screaming and yelling on the phone.
No, of course not. That's what I would have done. And then I would have been censored, and the FBI would have been kicking down our door. That's why I don't call NORAD. At any rate,
But wait, we did used to check out NORAD every year at Christmas time with the kids.
We did.
The website's super fun. The Santa tracker is really cute. So yeah, there's a plug to check out NORAD with your children and watch Santa.
Speaking of plugs, this is a plug that's more secure and better than any hair plug Joe Biden ever had for our wonderful sponsor, Oregon Valley Farm. They are fantastic, as we've been talking a lot in the last several episodes about eating real food. This is real food. We're big believers in being carnivores and eating lots of healthy protein that's animal-based. We think that should be the central staple of your diet. If you don't like it, that's too bad. Enjoy your soy latte and your vegan burger. Yeah, if you want a real burger, check these guys out.
What's in half of those vegan burgers is frightening.
Well, it's the most highly processed food in the world.
A lot of
it's just whatever
stuff I don't understand even or chemically what it is. But if you can't eat meat because of an allergy, that's one thing. But we believe real beef, real chicken, real pork is an important part of a healthy body and diet. And so check out OregonValleyFarm.com for locally sourced, sustainable, hormone-free that's delivered to your door. And you get to select what you can do. Subscription boxes, pick individual products. Maybe 1 week you just want to order a bunch of chicken, or you're in a pork mood. I don't know. But
well, I'm always in a pork mood.
Oh, I can't believe you said that on a podcast.
I can't believe that you opened the door and kicked me through it.
I find myself repeating that phrase frequently on this show. Anyway, hope you had a wonderful time listening to this episode. And remember, we are doing a giveaway soon. Check out our social media profile on Instagram and Facebook for details on the giveaway, what it entails, what you have a chance to enter and win, and when we will be announcing it.
Outstanding. All right. We'll see you next week for some other scintillating conversation and probably some inappropriate remarks as well. So stay tuned.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.